How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Week 6 Patriots game takeaways, where I'm going to go through the game, all the stats, all that good stuff here, break down my big takeaways, my thoughts, interpretations from the game, all that good stuff. So, just diving straight in here. I guess right off the bat, I'll get to it sooner than later. The officiating. The officials were an absolute joke this game. They did anything they possibly could to hand the Saints this game. I don't know why they wanted the Saints to win. It's one thing if it's the Chiefs. Obviously, we know the NFL does anything in their power, as we saw this week against the Lions, for the Chiefs to win their games. But why the Saints? This season specifically, I guess. It's not the Drew Brees led Saints anymore. So that was an absolute disgrace. They nearly cost us the game with two absolute bullshit calls to go in the Saints' favor, and then multiple non-calls on should have been pass interference calls on the Saints that we didn't get. So thankfully, in the end, we were able to pull the win anyway. But it's not the Saints' fault. But I mean, this officiating crew is a disaster. I hope we never get them for a Patriots game ever again. They were an embarrassment and an absolute joke. And it was one of the most infuriating games to watch as a fan. So now that I got that out of the way, I'll just dive straight into the game here. So, good win. We could have fell into the trap game. We came off the high against beating the Bills. Sunday Night Football, biggest win for a franchise in years. We look ahead and see the Saints on the schedule. All right, well, we should be able to go in there and get a win if we just beat the Bills. Sunday Night Football in their house. So it's good that we didn't fall into that trap. It was only a 6-point win. We should have won more again if the referees correctly called the game. But the Saints, I mean, they're record wise, they're a bad team, but they're a competitive team for 1-5. With the exception of that Seattle game, they've been right there in all of their games this season. And at home, we're definitely a better team, but not light years ahead of them by any means, as far as how the rosters are constructed. We'll say. I mean, we're definitely much better than they are, I would say, but at least in terms of how our rosters are currently constructed. But still, Saints competitive team. They're not going to be like a free win like a lot of us thought they were this season. So we took care of business. We went on the road, got a good dub. Certainly some things to some dying here, sorry. Certainly some things to clean up on our end. Penalties, I mean, I say this every single week. That certainly needs to be cleaned up. I figured under Vrabel, and we still got plenty of time, but I figured under Vrabel, we'd be one of the lesser penalized teams in the league, but that hasn't been the case so far. The run game has been non-existent this season, pretty much outside of week 2 against the Dolphins, who have a horrible run defense. Got no run game in this one, pretty much. It was all May. Defense, they certainly did not play too great today, but the second half they tightened up a bit. They only held the Saints to 3 points. I say it like every week. The first drive of our opponent, it feels like, well, I guess it didn't happen in the Bills game because it was a fumble, and the Dolphins game didn't happen either. Besides that, they've gone right down the field and put points up on the board. And it happened in this game. The first play of the game, Rattler went deep and hit Olave, and we tightened up from there. So it's just one big play rather than the team consistently moving down the field. But still, we got to not allow points ideally on the first drive. It's scripted for most teams, but still, got to tighten that up, clean that up there a bit. So yeah, I'll just dive into the stats here. So May again played phenomenal this game. The statistics don't even. I mean, They show he played great, but if the referees correctly called the game, those stats would be even better. He may had over 2 touchdowns and over 100 passing yards overturned from 2 absolute bullshit, egregiously bad OPI calls. The first one on Diggs, where they waited like minutes after the play happened, to the point both teams trotted their special teams units out on the field to get ready for us to attempt the extra point. and they called OPI on Diggs, who had nothing to do with the catch. It was as far away from him as possible. And if anything, Diggs is getting held on the play. So that was pure bullshit. And then late in the game, 6 point game, May hits Diggs for a 50-yard pass. We're in scoring range. That would have gone, arguably would have iced the game if we had scored there. And no, they called Diggs for another bullshit OPI. So I don't know what the hell Diggs did to these officials, if he's sleeping with their wives or whatever, but that was absolutely abysmal. And then Matt Collins, the next third down, you can argue there should have been a DPI there. Nope, we didn't get it. Pop Douglas should have been a DPI late in the game, didn't get it. Absolutely ridiculous. Vrabel won both of his challenges this game. When is the last time you've seen a coach win both of their challenges in a game? For Christ's sake, we probably would have needed another challenge. Kneeling the ball down. Actually, technically, we couldn't challenge it because it was under 2 minutes. But if we could, they probably would have said we fumbled the ball on the kneel downs or some shit, the way this game was being officiated. My God. But anyway, May's stats would have been even better if the officials had correctly called the game. But still, May played phenomenal this game. He's been an absolute stud. MVP candidate 6 weeks into the season. As I mentioned, we had no run game. May was our leading rusher on the day. Booty went off. I really like Booty. He had a good year last year. He was one of the only bright spots on with May of our team last year. Pop Douglas had a really good game. Would have had a career game if the referees didn't have the Saints money line in this one. Felt bad for him. Been struggling all year. Perfect, opportunity for him to, have a career game, and the ref screwed him. Diggs didn't do too much, but again, he had 2 penalties called on him that were bullshit, had a 50-yard bomb overturned. So that would have been his stats would have looked a lot better. Otherwise, Matt Collins had a big third down catch. Hunter Henry had a few catches, per usual, Mr. Consistent. And, then besides that, a couple of our guys got one, really only Hooper and Henderson got a catch each. Looking at the Saints here, Rattler actually played a good game. He, a lot of kind of short passes like you've seen this season. They didn't really have much of a run game. Our run defense has been fantastic this season. But Rattler played good this game. He looked like the greatest quarterback in NFL history for a stretch of this game, which, again, goes back to my point of we need to clean up the pass defense a bit. Olave had a good game. A lot of those yards came on the first play. Then, Kamara getting some checkdowns. He's their second leading receiver. And the Saints from there kind of balanced the ball out a bit. Looking at the team stats here, pretty close in a lot of these. We won all these except, rushing yards here did even. Out of these 4 key stats, we won 2 of them. Then we were, tied in rushing yards and yards per play. They had 1 more than we did, yards per play. So pretty even there. We, had 2 more first downs. So these stats are pretty, indicative of how the game was. Very tight for most of it. We had a 2-score lead at one point. The Saints cut it down to 6. Then from, that point on, it was 25-19 for a majority of the game. So, yeah, those stats are a pretty good summary of, how the game went. Sometimes they can be misleading. Of course I like stats, but, context with stats is important. You can't just look at, box score and solely judge the game off of it. It can be a bit misleading sometimes. But in this case, I would say it isn't. But again, if there is a stat for referee incompetence in the Saints' favor, they would certainly have beat us in that regard. I don't mean to keep honing back on it. It just genuinely pisses me off how we legitimately almost lost this game because the referees made 2 horrible calls in the Saints' favor and then didn't make calls in our favor that should have been. What else from this game? I was going to say something else. From this game. Shit. I'm blanking here. I guess overall my takeaways are, again, good win for us. Could have fell into a trap game. Saints aren't great this season, but they're better than people thought. Could have fell into the trap game. We didn't. We showed up to play. We didn't come into the game trailing, playing bad like a trap team. Then we ended up, or a trap game, and then, had to come back. We were in the lead for most of the game. The Saints had a lead briefly in the second quarter. Besides that, we played well. We led, played well from that point on. Uh, Run game again needs to get better. Pass defense needs to get a bit better. We were missing some guys too, so hopefully we can get them back. Um, so yeah, those are kind of my concerns. Just the run game. I guess I'd say penalties. Pass defense needs to tighten up a bit. Positives: May, phenomenal. Booty, awesome. Pop Douglas got involved. Diggs was kind of quiet most of the game. It had that monster reception that should have, counted. Um, Again, defense tightened up in the second half. But then the flip end, you can argue our offense really didn't do too much in the second half. We could not be stopped in the first half. The only time the Saints stopped us from scoring was we went for it on a 4th and 7, like around the 40, and the snap was high, and May just had to fall on it, so the Saints wouldn't scoop it up and run with it, maybe even score. So that was the only time they stopped us in the first half. Then after that, we only scored a field goal in the second half. We went right down the field. We were at the goal line, couldn't get in, had to settle for a field goal. Then besides that, they stopped us. But I will say, clutch at the end of the game, Booty, another monster reception. That one I'll give the refs a bit of a break here. It looked like Booty was out of bounds initially, and then Vrabel challenged, and they correctly, said he was inbounds. But at first eye glance in real time of the play actually happened live, it looked like Booty was out of bounds and he caught it. So I'll give the refs a bit of a break there. Our defense, that was big of them to force that fumble on Juwan Johnson. They were at midfield. So, who knows? They got a few first downs that drive. Who knows? Maybe they would have went down and taken the lead there. So great of our defense to force that ball, get a fumble. So like many games, obviously happy you got the win. A lot to clean up, but I would definitely say more positives than negatives. We play the Titans, who are a disaster right now. They finally fired Callahan. I was hoping the one, positive from them beating the Cardinals was that basically extended Callahan at least until we played him, because Callahan was a joke. He was an awful joke of a head coach, in my opinion. He was a disaster. So I would have felt more confident with Callahan coaching, but I still think we'll beat them. But maybe they get the interim head coach boost, but who knows? We'll have to see. But yeah, main takeaways from this game: good win. Just happy we didn't fall into the trap game. Offense was good. Certainly would like to see more than 3 points in the second half. Pass defense, again, needs to improve. They played better in the second half. Run defense was great. Our run game, we need to do better. And the referees, again, need to really be assessed after this game. At least that specific officiating crew led by Adrian Hill, because that was a disaster. So yeah, as I always say in these videos this year, very optimistic on the team. Looking more and more realistic. They might get to that 11 wins I predicted. Hopefully, we can at least make the playoffs. That would be my, I'd be happy if we at least made the playoffs. But yeah, I will end the video here. Optimistic as usual coming out of this game. Big takeaway. But I'll end the video here. I'm gonna record my week 6 recap video right after this, so be on the lookout for that if you're interested. But besides that, I'm gonna wrap this one up here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in, and take it easy, guys.